It has been a minute here, fellas,
Yes.
since we had a
Yes.
chance to podcast. Some stuff went down.
It's true.
Mike went to Japan,
I
and
did.
how was Japan, Mike?
It was amazing.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so I'll say this for those that haven't been or that are interested in going, airfare is expensive for sure. But for me, that was actually the most expensive part of the trip.
yeah.
Food, lodging, pretty much everything else except for, paying for the classes that I took when I was there. Really, really affordable. Like way
Wow,
affordable. The first 4 days that I stayed in the hotel, first hotel I stayed in, was about $200
4 days.
for 4 days,
That's
breakfast
good.
included. Yeah,
That's crazy.
Wow.
yeah. And then the other hotel I stayed in for 10 days, that only ran me about $700-800 for 10 days.
That's good.
That's
Yeah,
completely
it's real good.
reasonable. Yeah. Okay.
Like also like
Okay.
the food, the floor for what they consider food is so much higher than what it is here. Half the time I ate at the freaking 7-Eleven and it was delicious, nutritious, and highly, highly affordable.
Okay.
Just gonna throw that out there.
Okay. I
So
believe you. I believe
yeah,
you. All
very
right. I
good.
need to come up with a reason to go to Japan.
Yeah, no,
Sounds
go.
like it would be fun.
It was good shit.
I can go looking for Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, no, go look for
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
Spider-Man.
Mike
Yeah.
found Optimus Prime chilling out in his home.
I did.
And Bob
Yeah,
was
it was just like on the
robot.
side of somebody's house. Just like
Nice.
somebody had it on the side of their house, and I was just like walking along, and I was like, "That's Optimus Prime."
And
Click.
then this son of a bitch had the unmitigated gall to get a can of Kirin Ichiban beer, take a picture of it, and send it to me. Say, "Look what I found." I'm like, I hope it fills you with the vileness of my essence, sir.
I've had
I mean-
Kirin Ichiban. It's not terrible.
I bought it out of a vending machine in like the lobby, so like I had to try it.
I mean, it's
I've had it.
it's not Japanese Budweiser. It's like Japanese
No.
Miller.
I mean, it was all
When
right.
I turned 24, a friend of mine brought a 6-pack of it to my birthday and thought they were being fucking clever. So, like
It
people
means that
think
you're
they're
number
fucking-
one, Kieran. Like that's what it means.
I mean, I am, but that's self-evident. It's very fucking self-evident. I will have you know. I will have you know.
Okay.
Other things that are self-evident is that Ralph Bakshi get involved in some animation, and the shit gonna be wild.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. This is kind of a pickup podcast. We had plans to do a episode about that movie
Flight of Dragons.
Flight of Dragons. I was going to say.
Yes, we haven't all gotten together and watched it yet. So
yeah, circumstances out of our control. So this is kind of a pickup podcast to talk about something that we're all well familiar with, and that I, surprise, recently saw for the first time, which is the nexus of animator Ralph Bakshi and artist Frank Frazetta, Fire and Ice, which is a movie that I think I heard of when it occurred when I was like 6 or 7 years old, but never saw. And this is worth talking about because these are both people that are of general interest to people like us.
Oh yes.
Bakshi is the guy. Bakshi made an X-rated animated film in the early 70s.
Yep, that was Fritz the Cat. And what made it?
Bakši's done a lot of stuff.
Well, he also did the Lord of the Rings.
Yes, he did the Lord of the Rings.
He did American Pop.
Pop, which is one of those things that I keep thinking I'll watch, but never do. But the reason I wanted to watch it is because I was fascinated by the animation style when I first saw some clips of it. And only later on did I realize that there's a reason I like this animation style, and it looks so much like it's because it's Bakshi. It's what he does.
Right.
You would also like American Pop because essentially what it is the history of music in America.
That was the hook for me. I was like, this seems interesting. I would want to check this out. I'll watch it at some point.
It's a generational story. I've watched it. It's pretty good. The story is legitimately fairly good. The animation is good. The music is, of course, really good.
Yeah.
Featuring like
tells-
some heretofore for when that film came out, like B-sides from like Iggy Pop and like other artists, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Lou
Like there
Reed is
was
in here.
yeah, like there were some tracks that people like literally had not heard until that film came out, which I thought was kind of an interesting,
Yeah.
you know, for when it came out, like I thought that was an interesting.
What year was that?
There-
91 that came out?
Oh no, it was earlier
Oh,
than
fuck
that.
if
I
I
want to say.
remember.
I
Fuck
want
if
to
I
say that was
remember.
in like the mid '80s.
Bakshi
Yeah.
had a very
Mm.
interesting history with the stuff he tried to get, like just his history of doing the animation and getting movies done. I saw a documentary on it. It just
When
went
he did Wizards too.
Yeah, he did
Wizards.
Wizards.
which I saw when it came out, which I think I was 4, because my parents couldn't afford a sitter. And
You saw everything here, and this is known. Just like I've seen nothing, you've seen everything.
well, no, I haven't seen everything. I just saw a lot of shit that wasn't age appropriate. That's all. Which, you know, I suppose there's explanation for why I am the way I am. And movies is it. But no, Wizards was a good one. A lot of rotoscoping.
Well, which was just like this movie, Fire and Ice.
Yeah, rotoscoping or everything that he does is either rotoscoped or looks rotoscoped, I want to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
One, and if I like, so I just rewatched this movie for like the I don't know how manyth time, like earlier today before before we did this podcast, and like I sat through the credits and I was looking through, and like they have stunt doubles. They actually have a credit for like all of the people that are doing stunts in this film.
Yeah.
So like a bunch of the stuff really was just like, okay, you go like on
Yeah.
a soundstage or whatever, like go like fall through the vines, you go jump over that chasm. Okay. All right, now we're gonna just like animate it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, I thought that was like I was like, oh, okay, so if they've got these guys, like and there's like one lady that did stunts for the women. I was like, okay, so if you've got all of this, then
Yeah.
you know, this is something that really happened.
Yeah, and it's interesting to think about that because obviously they did it on a soundstage and it wasn't necessarily green screened or blue screened, but then animation was put in on top of it later on, and
hand drawn
animation, and for some reason it looks and feels like a live pulsating story. Which, whereas when you do it in front of a green screen, you end up with the Phantom Menace, and it's boring as hell. And I don't know why that is. Because if anything, CGI should feel more real.
What?
But it doesn't. It's that uncanny valley thing.
The valley. See, that's the thing. Because animation is not attempting to look real, but like a stylized version of reality, it does not trip into the uncanny valley. Whereas CGI is trying to look like reality, but isn't.
Right.
It's right in that uncanny valley right there. Right.
Yeah. That makes sense. It's a wonderfully basic story.
Yes.
You understand it. I want to say that the introductory material, the introductory narration was like shoved in, like maybe by the studio, and it kind of feels unnecessary. I feel as though if you left that out, you'd be able to figure out what's happening. Like the big ice wall comes and attacks the village. You have what did Joe Bob Briggs used to say? There's not a whole lot of plot to get in the way of this movie.
Oh.
I mean, very basic. Very basic. You have Necron. You have his mother. You have Necron. Fucking Necron.
Necron.
Well, he's definitely one of the in the long pantheon of like queer coded villains. Like he definitely is one of that.
Mother, if you bring another one of your whores before me, I'll have you executed.
Yep. I'll crush you like a bug. I was like, oh, all right. Should you really be talking to your mom that way, fancy boy?
Right. He seems to revel in being a terrible person, and to enjoy himself for that. Like he's always sitting there. He seems deep in thought, but you know perfectly well that whatever he decides to do is going to be the worst possible thing that anyone could do in that situation.
Yes, yes. Like, even though he has like completely no carnal interest in the main female protagonist, he still taunts her brother and father, like, no, she's not wholly unattractive. I'm like, dude, nobody believes you with her. Okay, no one. You're not fooling a goddamn person here. Okay, no one believes it, Necron. Okay, Necron, we all believe that the closest you get to any sexual activity is staring in a mirror deeply and masturbating.
Hey.
And that's about
Or
as far as
or pushing that glacier further, like literally pushing the glacier forward, because there was
Right.
like, and I had noticed that like this is, and I guess I didn't like pick up on it like on previous watchings, but like within the first 5 minutes where he's like pushing the glacier, I'm like, this is a man and his glacier, apparently. Okay, but I was like, it's that kind of film,
He's
but
always
it
yelling out
is
like he's in pain or something. It's
something.
very in
pain,
Maybe
pain.
something. Pain. Yeah. Pain.
extreme effort.
Yeah.
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 All right, he's either about to nut or shit himself on that throne, and I'm not sure which would make him more displeased.
Possibly both.
Mm.
Possibly both.
Maybe
You never
both at the
can
same
tell.
time.
Yeah,
I don't know.
you
Well, and I
know.
mean, the animation of the glaciers were like it that particular part were like extremely phallic, like they were just like sort of jutting up off into like the air, and I was like,
It is jagged and aggressive.
yes.
What's much like the cat climbing up my chair right now? What's up with
Oh dear.
Yeah, it'll be like that. It'll be like that.
See that? See that?
Oh, yeah, there he goes.
Oh, no,
Yep.
right up on the back. Yeah, there he is.
Yep.
Well,
Yep.
welcome to the podcast, Attila.
And once this thing gets started and you have the whole plot with the kidnapping of the princess, and the hero of the story is the guy who escapes from the village that's destroyed, and they kind of run into each
Yeah.
other, and the hero like helps the princess escape, but there's not a whole lot of like character interaction. Everything's very streamlined story wise. It's like, these are the bad guys, you're the princess, I'm gonna help you out. And it's pretty much just an excuse to watch, fighting and chasing, and it's very
And then you got
tense
that guy.
and nicely paced. And even though there's not a whole lot to explain, you're very invested in what's going on. The world is very richly drawn.
It is.
And
It is. And
It's very
the
evocative.
yes,
very evocative. It's got that. What was it, dude? Black Wolf, I think. The guy wearing
Yeah,
the
Dark Wolf. Dark Wolf.
Dark Wolf.
Dark Wolf.
The guy wearing someone's German Shepherd on his head.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially,
Yep.
like
Yup.
the neighbor's German Shepherd wandered into his yard, and he had about that far with that fucking dog getting into his trash, and so that was it.
Mhm.
He killed the dog and put it on his head, and now that's his superhero persona or some shit like that, or maybe some kind of warped furry. I don't know. This is how Dark Wolf be.
This is
So-
how Dark Wolf be.
So I
Dark Wolf be
thought,
stoic.
I'm not trying to like cut to the end, but like I thought it was interesting that so you have sort of the three major protagonists. So you have what is it, Larn,
Mhm.
the princess, and Dark Wolf.
Yeah.
And while both the princess and Larn end up like killing some of the subhumans or whatever, I thought it was really interesting that like it's freaking Dark Wolf who's actually the real hero of the story,
Yep.
who like is the one that actually does in Necron or whatever.
That's
And, like,
correct.
and I can't like the whole thing is like I can't really understand what happens in that whole like final sequence, and I'm like, is he just like roiding out and it's like the power of steroids like overcomes like Necron's magic, or like what exactly is happening here? Because like everyone else that's gone up against this dude like is sort of subject to his magic. But I also thought it was an interesting like sort of setup just in terms of like the morality, because like both Larn and the princess are sort of presented as these more innocent characters that are
That's
struggling
literally
against
what
the
I was just
circumstances.
thinking. Yeah.
And like Dark Wolf is like, they were like, no, this guy's like the anti-hero to a certain extent. Like he's obviously seen some things and done some things, and he's like, no, I'm gonna put this bitch in the dirt. And like he does it. But
Mhm.
like I just thought that was an interesting sort of character narrative like choice, because it was like
Well-
you have someone who's obviously not entirely a good person who's like, no, I got a score to settle.
Yeah. And we don't get a whole lot of what that score is. We get almost nothing.
He's pretty much a cipher. Like he shows up and like does some things and helps out the protagonist, so we don't really ever get any of his story.
Yeah, and he fades back out of the story, you know.
I suspect
and
that,
then he comes back in, and he's kind of like, you know, you want to compare it to someone like, Han Solo, right?
Yeah.
It would be if like Han Solo disappeared from the story for a while and then blew up the Death Star.
Right.
And that's kind of not what we've come to expect that character does. He's a mentor warrior guy who helps the wet behind his ears hero sack up and learn to be a hero. But that's not what's going on here. There's a lot. I don't want to say a lot because there's almost nothing. But there's this movie is tonally different. Like Larn, our ostensible protagonist, is, as much as anybody else in the story, really just kind of along for the ride. Like he's on the run from the beginning and he just keeps running. And yeah, he wants to fight Big Bad. Everybody wants to fight Big Bad. And so he's kind of he's less a hero and more just like a viewpoint character, you know? He doesn't overcome anything.
Yeah.
He doesn't really have the heroic journey. He doesn't refuse the call. We don't have any of that, hero with 1,000 faces stuff. He's the one guy who survived the village, and he's on the run, and he'll fight bravely, but he ain't killing Necron.
Well, no, he ain't.
He tried.
But he is not answering the call to pants. We know that much. Like
there is no pants in Final
There are no
Rise.
pants. There's no pants in this movie. None whatsoever.
There are no pants.
Gondor has no pants. Gondor needs no pants.
Even apparently in the freaking Glacier Palace, it's too goddamn warm for pants. Just gonna throw that one out there.
Apparently,
no one has
igloos are quite cozy. That's just what I've
I guess.
I
thought you had to build a fire and put like some animal skins on the. You know what? Never mind. It's cool.
It's fine.
Look,
it's fine.
Look, all I'm saying is that this is why this culture is clearly so technologically behind, is because they could not master pants, and that has held them back.
You know where all that technology went? Into having a series of levers that would unleash the freaking lava.
Yeah.
That's where all of that technology went.
That's the other secret of the climax, is at one point, the King of Fire just like, all right, turn the goddamn lava on. Just turn it on.
Why didn't we do
this
earlier?
Turns it on, and it melts the glaciers, and and everyone, you find yourself being like, why did you just do that? But I guess he was like, if I do that, it's going to make a giant mess, and I would really prefer not to make a giant mess. It's kind of like a nuclear weapon that he doesn't really want to have to use.
Only not like a nuclear weapon at all, and more just like hot rock.
Well, I was also kind of like, so isn't like that palace and like their whole city kind of made out of stone? So like, what other? You know what? Never mind. I'm not gonna bring physics into this. Yeah,
or logic.
That's not what this is. That's not what this is.
No.
So
this is for you to suspend your disbelief, like a lot, and cheer on for Dark Wolf to go flex his mighty fuse at Necron and put him in a tizzy, and therefore defeat him. And there are a lot of readings one can do to the ending. And
yes,
be questioned by corpses. Why do the living always disturb?
I was literally just thinking of that. That is a scene that does not go where you think it's going to go.
No.
You think this scene is going to be this, and it's going to set something up, and it doesn't at all. It's kind of like just a closed loop, and she escapes, and then she's captured again. And what did that mean?
And the only thing that really benefits the story from that whole sequence is like the sort of haunted dead or whatever, like the corpse of the witch or whatever, is like they're going to this place. And she tells Larn like where they're going, and he's able to like move forward and basically
Okay, yeah,
you know,
yeah.
pursue. But that's literally it. I mean, like, you could have actually just had like, he could have just found like a wounded like subhuman on the way and been like, "Tell me where they're going, you bastard," and they'd be like, "Oh, they're going to this place," and he'd be like, "Fine," and and just keep moving. Like,
No, because the subhuman would have looked along and said, "You're a bit of a bitch. I don't think I'm going to help you."
yeah. Also, just like, can I just say, I love that they were just called the subhumans. Like, they're just like, yeah, these guys are just like,
Yeah. Um
They're
yeah.
on permanent latrine duty, man. Like,
Yeah. They're
go
orcs.
scrub that toilet.
They're orcs. It is what it is.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And but they're all individually rendered orcs,
Mm-hmm.
which I find really interesting. I mean, these guys, all these cruddy, gray, green, monstrous looking guys, they're all individually drawn. It's not like a squad of stormtroopers. Each one of them has his own face,
Yep.
and each one of them dies. And you see each one of them die, and they have different voices and names and personalities, and it's wonderful.
Oh yeah, no, for sure.
they're
Yeah,
almost
absolutely.
more human than subhuman.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, they're yes.
What, and I thought it was interesting. There was sort of an interesting juxtaposition between like the witch's son, who's like that weird Neanderthal type guy
Uh-huh.
that she sends out to go collect the basically go get the subhumans to be like, hey, we want to barter the princess off. And like, so I thought that was interesting that he's sort of a different type of person
Mm-hmm.
than the human protagonists,
Yeah.
different from the subhumans. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I thought that part was actually kind of cool, like kind of interesting.
There's
So
definitely this is definitely a world in which there are a variety of humanoid species.
yeah,
You know, it's that ancient kind of like more Tolkien than Robert Howard idea of the variety of humanoids and all those old myths and legends, which we now know are not completely bogus because there are a variety of humanoid species. There actually were little hobbit creatures somewhere in the
yep,
southeast in like Sri Lanka or something. Tiny
yep,
little
yep, yep.
guys, and there were
There were
big.
there were at least two other species of essentially human, though not Homo sapiens, that were coexisting with our ancestors. I
Yep.
think the
Mhm.
Devonians and the Neanderthals, and
Yep.
like so, which from all indications, us as the slut people fucked them out of existence. We did not, in fact, kill them. Because you can find the DNA within our chains, but yes,
Right. Yeah.
It's those
Everyone.
bonobo genes.
we
Yep.
bonoboed them out. Weren't we just talking about bonobos yesterday?
We were
Yeah,
talking
it's
about
just
this
the
yesterday,
bonobos.
yeah.
We
Where
were.
the
Not
chimpanzees were
specifically.
like, we're gonna kill them and eat them all. Where the bonobos were like, we're gonna outfuck them. We're gonna fuck in ways that they haven't even thought of yet. They're gonna be like, my God, I didn't know what sex was. And we're like, God damn right you didn't. Bonobo, man.
Yeah, and including the Neanderthals, and yeah, everyone of European or Asian ancestry has Neanderthal DNA.
Yep, that's correct. That's where all redheads come from.
Yep. God
Yep.
bless them.
That explains a lot.
It done it. Done it. It's wonderful. So yeah, this movie is wonderfully wild and ancient and just a pleasure to look at.
Yeah,
It-
very
yeah,
pretty.
it is.
Very
It is
well
very pretty.
designed.
It reeks of effort in its visual storytelling, and the plot is basic enough to follow along, and you need everything that you need, and it's really just a wonderful spectacle. And it does.
And I love the character designs and just sort of like the whole visual design. Like Frazetta is apparent. Like if you've ever seen any of his work, any of
Yeah.
his artwork, you can look at this and within like 2 seconds just know immediately that's who did the major designs.
Yeah,
It's really fantastic.
Frazetta's the guy who gives us like our visual image of what pulp fantasy is.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, he's one of the granddaddies. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Definitely. Definitely.
Conan looks like
Mm.
what Frank Frazetta decided Conan looked like. Like that's we
Yes.
live in his world,
Yeah,
his
yeah.
image of all that stuff. Like awesome heavy metal album cover from the 70s is Frank Frazetta's World, or someone that was aping him.
Oh yeah.
And there's something uh it's beautifully barbarian art,
Oh yeah.
and intentionally so. He's one of those guys who could have painted and perhaps in an earlier generation would have painted pinup art.
Yeah.
Oh, he loves his
Because
titties.
It
yes,
does.
but he also just loves muscles
Yeah.
and the shape of the human form at its physical apotheosis is what interests him. But he would have been painting pinups a generation earlier, but instead he painted uh awesome barbarian fantasy art and made a living doing that,
Yeah.
which is amazing to me.
No, I imagine that is not an easy road to hoe. I mean, I don't do amazing fantasy art, but
Yeah, it's hard.
now art is art is a motherfucker to make a living on. Let me tell you,
Yeah, but he found a market
niche.
and
Yeah,
niche, and he filled it and spent his life doing it. Like, you look at his selected paintings on the Wikipedia page, you're going to be scrolling for a while.
yeah, you are,
Um,
you are.
all those Edgar Rice Burroughs books, Fighting Man of
Mm.
Mars, John Carter and the Savage Apes of Mars, Princess of Mars, Vampirella.
Yep.
Yeah,
He gave us
Yep.
Vampirella. That's him. Um,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
all these things. And if you've seen one, you've seen them all. And actually, that's let me rephrase that. You've intaken the spirit of them all.
Yeah. Well, his style is very distinct, and I think it's also, yeah, if you've seen one Conan cover, you have a pretty good idea of what to expect
yeah.
of, any of the others.
I mean,
Um,
he inspired quite a few artists. Boris, whatever his last name, Vallejo, I think it is.
mm,
Mm-hmm.
Inspired him because his art takes a lot from Franzetta. It's like Franzetta, only shinier. If that
yeah,
makes
or
sense.
in
Yeah.
like what is it? Royo, like Louise Royo or something like that, who did a bunch of art for Heavy Metal the magazine. Like I've got one of
Yeah,
his art books, and
you
you
can
Yes.
can
even
you can very clearly see the Frazetta like influence on like in
and
his work.
you can even see the Frazetta DNA and Simon Bisley's work in heavy metal as well.
That's true. That to a certain extent, yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Um, he did a handful of album covers. Frazetta
Hmm.
did. Most famously, Molly Hatchet.
Yep.
And the most recent one that he did, he died in 2010, but the last album cover he did was the debut album by Wolf Mother in
Oh shit! I didn't realize
2006.
that.
Yes,
Oh wow!
Wolf
Wow! Wow!
Mother is a
Wow!
Frazetta, and
Shit.
yeah, it's a really good album too. I love me some Wolf Mother.
All right.
Yeah.
See, Franzetta doing a Molly Hatchet cover is like Geiger doing the Emerson Lake and Palmer cover. I'm like, what with the what? And I'm like,
You're not
I
wrong.
But a paying gig is a paying gig, you know.
Yeah. Got to make your living through art.
now you say shit like that. Now you say that shit, and I'm gonna end up having to do a cover for like the Black Keys or some shit like that, and I'll just be
And
looking
what would be
bitterly.
wrong with doing a cover for the Black Keys?
I mean, they would
Not
give you money.
they would, but it wouldn't be in the style of my typical. It wouldn't be what you would expect from a Kieran original, like Black Key.
I like the Black
I mean,
Keys.
There's
sometimes you
nothing
get out
wrong
of
with
your
them.
comfort zone, and
But
that's
like you
like
would
where you
figure me
shine.
doing like a metal album or maybe a grunge album cover, or
Yes.
I mean, to be
You
fair,
would do
the only album cover I've done, and I have done a CD cover to this point, to my credit, has in fact been a pirate sea shanty cover. But
I think you mentioned
uh,
that before. That
I
sounds
remember that one.
familiar. Yeah.
yeah,
That sounds awesome, actually.
that was Troubled Waters, which I'm also
Yeah, you would
responsible
do
for.
good heavy metal covers, Kieran. You
I
should do
would,
that.
man. I would. I would do
Yeah.
good death metal covers too. Except I would deliberately make the metalheads, the band members on the cover lost in the Norwegian forest look really confused. Like, where the fuck are we? Maybe a little concerned and pensive. Very pensive, like, Not feeling this forest. Kind of want to be back in my tour bus. Not doing this at all.
He also did a movie post. He did movie posters too, and one of the movie posters he did was for Roman Polanski's The Fearless Vampire Killers,
Ah,
which is a
Okay.
movie we did not talk about when we were talking about vampire comedies.
I never
did
heard of
not.
that movie.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
It's a Roman
Surprise.
Polanski film, which I've only seen a few of. I think I saw his Macbeth, and maybe
I think I've seen that
Romeo.
too, but I don't remember it.
It's visceral as fuck.
Yeah, it's Macbeth. It should be.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, yes, it should be, but it's visceral in kind of almost a grindhousey manner.
Okay, that sounds right.
I mean,
Yeah,
it fits.
yeah.
It tracks, but yes.
I saw Rosemary's Baby. I've seen Chinatown.
I saw that one.
Rosemary's Baby. My mom watched that while pregnant with me, so
Wow.
yeah, yeah.
I think I did see The Pianist. I saw The Pianist.
Oh no, I saw that one. Okay, yeah,
It's not
all right.
bad.
I didn't realize that was him. Okay,
Yeah, that was him. That was
it was
him.
all right.
Yeah, it's fine. It's exactly what you think it's going to be. Anyway,
No
that was
surprises,
just
yeah.
yeah. I might watch Fearless Vampire Killers at some point. It sounds like it would be an
Polanski film.
amusing
Okay,
film.
that's a lot more, and I'm kind of surprised they never got him to do any of the Conan the Barbarian or Conan the Destroyer movies posters, because that would have just been magnifique.
Yeah, it's
I
weird
mean,
that they
it
didn't do
also
that.
talk about going full circle, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
Or the Red Sonja one,
yeah, it's
even.
weird that they.
yeah, that too.
I always forget about Red Sonja. I rewatched Conan the Barbarian
people
and
do.
Conan the Destroyer because they were on Netflix, and have not changed my assessment of either film. Conan the Barbarian is awesome. Conan the Destroyer is.
Eh.
It's silly. It's a silly
very-
movie.
It's a silly movie, and what is with that annoying
this-
thief character, and why is he so annoying? Why
Well,
are
and
none
he's-
of his funny lines funny?
And he's like basically the same character. He's almost the same character that same actor plays in Repo Man.
Oh God, right? I forgot he was in Repo Man. I've only
It's
seen
just
Repo
the same
Man
actor,
once.
and he's like, he's the mechanic that like has never driven a car before. It's that guy.
God.
Yeah,
I've seen
Yeah,
that
no.
actor in something else as well. I feel like.
he plays
Like-
Bob in Batman.
Like, oh,
In
right.
Michael
Yes!
Keaton's Batman.
Batman.
Bob Gunn.
Yes,
Blam.
Bob the
Yep,
Thug.
it's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bob
the same
Thug,
actor.
yeah. I just feel that I just feel that
Why didn't
He-
somebody tell me he had one of those things?
yeah, no, Conan the Destroyer is a very silly movie, and this is coming
It
after
is.
the original Conan the Barbarian, which had Conan getting hopped on up on the blackest of the great best of Stygian Black Lotus and punching out a fucking camel. But
Yeah.
which is pretty comedic, but
Yeah.
still in keeping with the epicness of the film. And I really do believe that Schwarzenegger in his prime could have knocked a fucking camel out.
Probably.
How hard is it to knock out a camel?
Probably not easy. I ain't never been around. Well, no, I have been around one in real life, but I've never punched one, so I couldn't tell you. They look like sturdy critters.
They are sturdy.
Yeah, but they probably have small brains. If you hit them just right, and you know, because unconsciousness is the result of your brain bouncing around inside your skull.
I don't know.
You
I
could
don't.
probably do it.
I don't know if they necessarily have small brains because they are incredibly petty creatures, and I oftentimes associate pettiness with intelligence.
I
That's
mean,
that alkaline.
How often do you see something stupid that's petty?
that's a fair point.
Most of the time. Isn't that the whole point of being petty? Is that it's kind of stupid?
No. Pettiness is a very specific. Pettiness has a certain level of chain of thought to it.
But you have to
Like-
plan.
Yeah,
you have
you
to
have
have,
to
you have to be able to hold a grudge. You have to have
Yes.
memory. Like, you know.
I take the point. I take the point that you're
Like, for instance, a koala is incapable of being petty.
Yeah, but a koala's grumpy and irritating, and no one actually likes them.
A koala is incredibly stupid as well.
Yeah.
They are pretty dumb.
Yeah,
Like it's
Australians don't like koalas. Only
for good
Americans
reason
do.
because they serve. Well, I think there's a kinship between the koala and your typical American. Just gonna put that out there.
I see where you're going with this.
So, what did we think of like the score, like the music in Fire and Ice?
um, my recollection of it is that it was entirely what it should have been.
Hmm.
Like I don't remember watching it and saying to myself having very strong reaction to it. It's like this is the music that would be in this movie.
I mean, yeah,
Right on.
it's not making me think that, oh, well, fuck, why are they singing this love song in Act 3 that I really could go without right now?
Yeah.
It's not the last unicorn.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. We didn't get to Firekeep and then had to deal with like 4 fucking songs. Yeah.
We didn't get to
No, I
Fire.
mean
They
I don't
don't. They
really
did.
recall the music at all, to be perfectly
They
honest.
didn't have like a soundtrack by Toto or Queen, so
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fair. No, I mean, I just thought it was an interesting sort of
or
composition.
Emerson,
Like
Lake and Palmer.
it's like you said, it was appropriate. But
Hmm.
it wasn't. It doesn't super stand out. Like it basically serves the function of like your sort of like your average score for a film.
Uh-huh.
It was all done by like one guy, which I thought was kind of interesting.
William
So
Kraft.
yes.
Okay.
Known
So I
primarily
thought
for
that
his
was kind of cool.
macaroni and cheese.
Well, some more Kraft dinner. Uh where yeah, he's got some ensemble works. He's got some large ensemble works. I'm looking at him right now, William Kraft. He's just like a guy who worked and he was a member of the Los Angeles Philharmonic. So yeah, I'd have to rewatch it to think about it. But I don't recall.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it did a good job of setting the mood. And I just thought it was very interesting that it was sort of like this in some ways like a very average score where it
Hmm.
like sets the mood, but it's not overwhelming. And then
No.
you just kind of like and you sort of you go along and but I like to me with as basic as the plot was, like I thought it was actually kind of amazing like how well this guy actually managed to score the film simply
Oh,
because like
okay.
it it gives you the feeling of the scene, which is half of what you have to work with because the plot is actually fairly minimal.
Hmm.
Um, and you have the evocative sort of art and everything.
Hmm.
But it's not it sets the table, but it doesn't stick around, essentially.
Yeah, which is kind of what
So
you'd
I just sort of
want.
wanted to point that out. I thought that was interesting.
It's kind of what you'd
Absolutely.
want. Yeah, like that's, when you're making a film of any kind, like a film is made by an army, whether it's, animated or not animated. There's a whole battalion of artists who have to work to make a feature film. There's so many things that all have to be put together in the service of one particular vision, which is why people still like to go along with the auteur theory
Mm-mm.
of
Mm-hmm.
directors, because the director is the person who has to, like the composer in a symphony, has to manage all these threads. Like the music has to be this and this scene has to look like this, and no, I don't want that to look like that, I want it to look like this, and what are you doing and what are you doing, and to a certain degree, this will also be managed by a producer, but that's where the autorial element is, because he's the auteur of auteurs. He's the composer. He plays the orchestra,
No,
and
exactly.
so it what you're saying makes sense in that the guy had to write music for a scene which the plot is very minimal and the character interaction is very minimal, and so a lot of feeling and emotion has to come from music, and you're getting it without really even noticing that you're getting it, which is usually a sign of good music.
Yeah, no. I thought like I dug it. It's like it's almost like he's the anti Hans Zimmer almost.
Sure.
where I feel like there's a lot of Hans Zimmer tracks where it's just like wah, wah, and you're like, Hans, turn it down. I'm trying to listen to the fucking dialogue, man. Yeah.
It insists upon itself, Lois.
Oh, yeah, a little bit.
So interestingly enough, I was just taking a look at the Fire and Ice Wikipedia page for some background information, and apparently the screenplay was written by 2 comic book writers who used to write Conan, which makes a lot of motherfucking sense.
It's my shocked face. If you look at me now, you will see my shocked face.
Yes, shocked and appalled, in fact.
And appalled. Yeah, no, that's exactly who should have wrote that.
And I'm even familiar with these writers because I used to do a lot of stuff at DC Comics, Jerry Conway and Roy Thomas.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Like they did
All
a
right.
lot of comic book stuff, so that makes perfect sense
Yeah.
because this is
Roy
very
Thomas was at Marvel.
Yeah.
He was the successor to Stan Lee
Yep.
at Marvel. Okay. That makes perfect sense then. Like this looks like a comic book.
Oh,
It
and
feels
Jerry
like
and
a comic book.
and Jerry Conway co-created The Punisher.
Oh, that's right.
Isn't
I
the
remember that
Punisher
now.
over now? I read somewhere that the Punisher was
Yeah, for the time being.
over. Or at least temporarily over until they decide to recast the Punisher and
Something like that. I don't know.
bring the Punisher back. The return and the death of
about as much as
Punisher.
anything in comic books stays dead. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Comic book. I mean, I wish I could be in a comic book so I could be comic book dead because then I mean, how do you do taxes in the comic books? Like, well, okay, well, you didn't pay taxes this year, and this year. Oh yeah, no, I was dead those 3 years.
Look,
Right, oh,
Batman pays taxes and Iron Man pays taxes. Nobody else pays taxes. Those are the only two.
I'm pretty sure Superman pays taxes.
Superman does not pay taxes.
Yes, he does.
No.
He's a journalist. He makes good money.
Nope. I bet
Spider-Man does not pay Spider-Man doesn't pay taxes. Spider-Man doesn't make enough to pay taxes, man.
No, Spider-Man's in a very low bracket. And I think
Spider-Man can barely afford to pay attention, all right?
Yeah. You know what? When Superman needs to pay taxes, he goes to Batman, and Batman sits him down, and he goes through TurboTax with him. He's like, God damn it, Clark. We do this every year. I know we do it every year, Bruce. What's the problem?
Thanks for helping me out, buddy.
You see, but it's not really Bruce that helps him out. It's Alfred, because Bruce don't do his own taxes either. It's fucking Alfred sitting in the back computer with a pencil behind his ear, muttering in a British voice about how the mighty have been brought low. And fuck your lobster Thumador, Master Bruce.
It's supposed to be served cold.
And your gazpacho.
Vichyssoise, sir.
Oh man.
I don't know how we got here, but I'm pretty glad we're here.
We're here.
Yep.
We are definitely, this is where we are. All right. So,
the last time I think we did a podcast, it was around tax season, so it's fair.
So I haven't looked into this, but like, how was Fire and Ice received back in the day when it was?
Oh well, let's
did it do?
see. It says a reception. If you love comic books but can't bear the unnecessary bother of turning pages, Fire and Ice may be for you. It would help if you were a sex-obsessed 12-year-old boy, but it isn't essential.
Like, that's the New York Times. That's the New York Times. Like, imagine a world in which the New York Times liked Fire and Ice.
Okay, Gene Siskel gave it 2 stars out of 4 and said, attractive to look at, but slow-moving, predictable story that makes watching it much more like reading a comic book with pages made of lead or that are stucketh together.
I don't think that anyone who was a well-established film critic at the time in 1983 is going to look at this and have nice things to say. What my
Sure.
recollection
Sure.
of the 80s is that they didn't like any of the stuff that we remember well.
I mean, they could have had an Oscar, like a, you know, Oscar-winning screenplay, and then animated the film, and it would have gotten panned in 1983 because it was animated.
Sure. I mean,
So
when do they like animated films? Like they have a whole separate category of Oscars for animated films.
No,
now,
apparently
which
there
they
was
did not have then,
And Wes
appar-
Anderson will never win an Oscar.
probably not.
apparently in 2022, Dynamite Entertainment announced they would be publishing a prequel comic series
Really?
Fire and Ice.
of Fire and Ice. I'm like, I don't know what this achieves exactly. Like, what really needs to, what unplumbed depths are there in the Fire and Ice universe that was not laid bare upon the celluloid? Honestly,
Well,
Hmm.
there's all the unplumbed elements because we don't get a lot in the movie. There's just enough story to roll along. So somebody's gonna nerd all over this and create a giant Wikipedia for Fire and Ice, and it's gonna be dorky as fuck.
Yeah.
And no one, people will obsess with it. If they're making it, that means there's a market for it, and the market is nerds.
I mean,
And
nerds with not terribly good taste, I'll say. I mean,
the taste of nerds is a long-standing debate, to be
This is
perfectly
also
honest.
true.
To be perfectly honest. That's another question. Like the whole critical zeitgeist, which, has a tendency to be out of step.
Sure.
Not just in the 80s, but always. I mean, when you
Yeah.
look at what stands the test of time versus what was praised at the time, like what won the Oscar in 1983?
some
I don't
movie I
recall.
probably didn't see.
Was it Gandhi?
Gandhi,
I
maybe an
want to say it
officer.
was Gandhi.
Probably Gandhi.
Gandhi or an officer and a gentleman.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, I saw Gandhi once when I was a boy. It
Now
was a
you're-
movie about Gandhi.
Yes, very predictable.
I have no interest in ever watching it ever again. I'm sure it's a nicely done
Oscar
film. Ben Kingsley
winner,
won an Oscar for it. I'm sure his performance is
1983.
fine, but
Yeah, it
Who
looks like
cares?
Richard Attenborough won the best directing Oscar for
Yeah, best actor
Gandhi.
Gandhi.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Best actress Sophie's Choice. Best picture,
Yeah.
Gandhi.
yeah.
Best
That's
supporting
what-
actress Tootsie. Oh, Lou Gossett Jr. Best supporting actor, Officer and and best original score was E.T. that year.
Mhm. Yeah. That's what they
Gandhi.
like. They're not gonna like Fire and Ice. That's not gonna happen.
That's
Gandhi,
fair.
E.T., Gandhi. Gandhi swept them motherfuckers that year.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
Gandhi's year.
and Victor Victoria also got some love that year too.
Anyway, the hell are we right now?
We're like way off topic. So far off topic. Yeah.
Should we talk about Ralph Bakshi a little more?
Yeah,
we
I guess
should.
we could do
We
that.
should.
Wander back out from the
So-
weeds.
Bakshi is we mentioned briefly Fritz the Cat.
Yep.
Which was an early thing, the only animated film or the first animated film to be given an X rating.
Yep.
I don't know if that's I don't know if they was trying to do that or not. I've never seen it. And he did some other kind of like movies in that vein throughout the 70s. Heavy Traffic and Coonskin and Hey Good Looking.
Yeah.
And then the late 70s, he started doing the fantasy stuff that he's perhaps best known for.
Yep.
His Lord of the Rings is not one that I've ever seen.
Oh, he also did the Mighty Mouse cartoons for a while and Cool World.
He
Yep.
did do Cool World.
Yep.
His Lord of the Rings is it's the complete story of Lord of the Rings, right? It's not just one part of it. It's
The
not
first
just
two.
Fellowship.
It's most of it. It's
He wanted to make 3
yeah,
films,
it's
but
pretty
he couldn't get
condensed,
funding
but
for it.
yeah, yeah, he did most of he did the high points of a lot of the stories. It's been so long since I've watched it.
Oh,
I
look, it looks like it ends with them arriving in Rohan. So it looks like it's not the complete story.
I feel like there was one where I feel like he did one where there's the whole siege of Minas Tirith, but like I don't. Yeah,
That
I'm not
might have
sure.
been the Return of the King movie,
Oh, okay.
which was Rankin Bass.
Ah,
There's the
okay.
Rankin Bass Return of the King, which I have seen and do remember seeing as a boy.
Yes.
And Rankin Bass also did The Hobbit. But
Yes.
so this is different, and the look of it is a little unique from what we're used to. I think this Lord of the Rings did not stay in the public consciousness as long in terms of what it looks like,
Yeah.
because every time I look at it, I was like, wow,
Me
Boromir
too.
looks awesome, but I hate what they did with Aragorn.
Yeah, and
They make Aragorn look ugly as fuck.
they
And
did
it
some weird
bothers
things
me.
in that particular movie, and like the whole sequence where Gandalf goes to confront Sauron is, or basically be like, "What's going on?" is a head trip.
Yeah.
From what I remember, but it's been a while since I've seen that particular film.
Yeah, I'm gonna want to check this out.
A lot of rotoscoping.
A lot of rotoscoping.
Spoilers.
Good.
Yep.
Good. I like that. That is an interesting animation style, which I think very nicely, as you were saying, Kieran, like rides the line right up until Uncanny Valley. And it looks wonderfully alive, which is what I like about it.
Very extremely brief tangent for rotoscoping. The It's not really recent anymore, but there was a Scanner Darkly that
I
was
love a Scanner Darkly.
the animated version
Yes.
rotoscoping.
Yeah. Yeah,
So yeah,
totally. It was almost like retro when that movie came out. They were talking about this is this thing that used to be done a
yep.
lot and isn't
It
done
used to be
much
everywhere,
anymore.
and like I feel like Bakshi was actually the one that made that sort of brought it to public
Yeah.
consciousness. Like more people have seen it, I think, or at least saw it back in the day, and then like learned about it because of this particular animator.
Yeah. And a Scanner Darkly is such a unique use of the rotoscope because it's almost not fully animated. It's almost only like partially so. So you
Mm-hmm.
can kind of see the film that was filmed and then the rotoscope animation that was done on top of it to give it a certain like mad feeling to it, which only like enhances the story. I like that movie so much that I've gone back and I read the novel,
Oh yeah, no, but
which
like
is
the animation style like adds to sort of the claustrophobia and the paranoia of the actual
no,
narrative. Yeah,
it's perfectly on theme.
yeah.
It's perfectly on theme. And as with Fire and Ice, where the rotoscoping makes everything look intensely like crawling out at you
Oh yeah,
and jumping and fighting and sweating and bleeding and
swinging on
killing.
vines, falling through chasms,
Yes,
the whole thing. Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like you don't see any animation drops. You don't see
No.
like something suddenly like badly drawn. It all looks great.
I mean, Batsky
Um,
himself has a pretty incredible sense of storytelling uh, when he's actually helming a film, like in terms of the writing. Like Wizards, I don't know how much of that he wrote, but that was a pretty dense story. I mean, it had some moments where the animation went a little, but like working on Wizards, that's actually where one of our Wendy Peeney got her start, was
Yep.
working
mhm.
on Wizards. And I mean, the rest of the stuff he's done, like American Pop and Traffic, yeah, or whatever that one is, and the rest of the stuff, like they've got some pretty layered, intense stories, and some of them even, follow his own background of him coming up.
Mm.
So,
Mhm.
Fire and Ice is remarkably plot light for something by him, and remarkably unlayered
Yeah.
for something Bashki would
Well,
do.
also, like honestly, the characters are kind of flat in one note, which is not usually how
No,
I want to say like his characters are in films.
no.
And he
Mm-mm.
did actually direct Fire and Ice. So I did think it was interesting, just sort of watching this movie again for like the nth time, but like older and having gone and seen some of his other work and knowing a bit more about him and Frazetta, I was just like, oh, okay. It was an interesting experience for me knowing what I know about them now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I think the idea seems to have been that this was just like a comic book brought to life.
Yeah.
And it needs to be just that wonderfully simple,
Yeah,
and just let what you see tell the story rather than what you hear. I mean,
And mind you, how
it's
comic books were largely at the time. Like I
mhm.
started I started my collecting or regular reading of comics around the time this film came out, and they were not incredibly complicated books back then. Like,
for sure.
um, now, mind you, not that they're terribly complicated now, being in their constant loop of let's go back to the same goddamn stories over and over again. But because they sold well the first time we did them, so why not?
Yeah.
But even so, comic book writing back then, I don't think Watchmen had come out yet, and I'm pretty sure The Dark Knight Returns hadn't come out right yet, which were
Nope.
two very big seminal works in comic books for making them more layered, serious, and adult. In
Yeah,
terms
Dark Knight Returns is like 85, 86,
Yeah,
and Watchmen is
like 84, 85, I want to say.
somewhere in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, those are both mid 80s.
And,
Well,
Sandman
so
hadn't come out yet, and I don't believe that Alan Moore had started working on Swamp Thing yet either, though I could be
yeah, I
Mhm.
wrong.
don't recall. I'd have to go
I
back and
could be
look.
wrong. So really, that back in that time, comic book storytelling was really simplistic, you know?
Yeah.
And I was interested. I was sort of surprised when I was watching some of the fight scenes in this, and like you do see some of the violence, but I was surprised at where there are some cuts,
Mhm.
um, where you don't actually see like the below land or things like that. Um, and
Hmm.
uh, I was surprised also because this film actually came out after Heavy Metal, the film,
Ah.
and like heavy metal like goes some pretty dark places. I mean, it's not like the be all end all, but I mean, it's not as though they necessarily would have been blazing a completely new trail
Well,
No, that's true.
with
well,
this particular film. But
also keep in mind, Heavy Metal magazine finds its origins in a French magazine called Metal Hurlant.
mm,
And so essentially, Heavy Metal magazine has always been kind of a European import, and there are some different standards over in Europe in terms of their storytelling and in terms of comic
That's
books.
true.
that is true.
Like,
Yeah.
you get things
Well, and
like, um,
go.
the 2 good European comics I could think of is, like, Asterix and Tintin, which are completely as an American child, me looking at those both, I'm like, "I don't get this shit at all."
No, no, Tintin can be kind of opaque at times. It's amazing that they tried to do a big film on that recently,
Like,
and they thought it was going to do well.
I can follow as a kid, I could follow Japanese cartoons better than I could follow European, and I do not come from a culture
Mm.
descended from Japanese, like, philosophy and outlook. I come from European origins. So, in terms of being American of European origin, you would think that that would be less opaque to me than Japanese would.
Well, Japanese popular culture is based on a very intense importing from American stuff,
Question.
and European European stuff is not
No,
to the same degree.
no,
They don't see us the same way the Japanese do. I
no.
don't think.
No, no, that's true. Uh,
Um,
yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
Oh no, no, no. I just yeah, I wanted to bring up heavy metal because I think it's important to a certain extent to just sort of that was actually a decent, a fairly big movie, I want to say,
Yeah.
stateside. So,
I think maybe, it's possible that Bakshi was trying to be careful to keep the rating someplace where he could still get the draw. I think he didn't want to run too many
sure,
risks.
sure.
Um,
Well, and he
yeah,
he had he had. I mean, the fact that he helmed the first X-rated cartoon, at least in the
sure.
US, in terms of like a feature length film, and then still had a career afterwards is kind of remarkable when you think about it.
Right?
Especially for when he was, and like you think animation is niche now, boy, back in the 70s it was like
Yeah,
super niche. Like,
if
so
you
the fact
weren't
that he eked out a career is kind of amazing.
yeah, if you weren't working for Disney or Warner Brothers, like how are you doing animation?
Yeah,
So
good luck.
that's good luck. So that's kind of impressive. So he was probably trying to be not try to like ruffle the feathers of the rating agency and also I don't know if he thought about this in terms of like what heavy metal was because heavy metal is like it's an anthology
Yeah.
and it's allowed to be weird and
Yeah.
it's allowed to
Yeah.
not make sense. Whereas this has to be, to a certain degree, have some elements of crowd pleasing action and a story that has a satisfying ending, and it does have that.
Yes.
The
Yes.
bad guys are smushed and melted, and Necron gets what's coming for him because he's a horrible person, and we get our triumph. Our hero and the princess are gonna, they're gonna have a good time afterwards. They smooch at the end. Isn't that the final shot?
Yeah.
I
No,
want to
that's
say,
that's
yeah.
the last
And
shot.
and
Yeah.
poor and poor Dark Wolf is left to his own devices.
Hey,
Once again,
Dark
And
Wolf got what he came for.
he did actually, which was
He got what he
revenge.
came for, and he's alive. Which, when you were talking about the ending of the movie, Mike, I thought that's what you were going to be talking about because, like, how is he still alive?
I don't know, and that's the whole like, and I
Dark Wolf is a hard motherfucker, man.
well, and
He
like
don't
I no,
he
he
don't
is.
take shit from the Grim Reaper. Grim Reaper showed up to take yank Dark Wolf's card. He's like, nah, son, I'm not that dude.
Not today,
I'm
bitch.
not that
Chop, chop,
dude.
chop. Yeah, no, like no, and like, and that's the whole thing. And I swear to God, like thought I had seen a version of this movie where like Dark Wolf fucking bites it like halfway through, and I was like, nope, nope, he lives all the way to the end. He's the one that actually kills Necron. I was like, all right, all right.
I was
And Dark Wolf's
convinced
like,
that
nah. Go on, man.
I was convinced that when he was standing there on top of that little hillock while Larn was getting away from the subhumans and he was like giving that roar, "Are you not entertained?" roar. I was convinced that's the last we were going to see a Dark Wolf.
Yeah.
I was like, okay,
Nope.
but then he comes back.
Well,
And he's like, "No, I'm here to do what I came to do." And then he's
he
like, "You
came to
think
kill Senior Ice Prick, and he did it. So
Yep.
I'm
Yep.
here
there you
to
go.
kill Necron and chew bubblegum, and I'm all
And he's
out of
all out of
bubblegum."
bubblegum. What if? Now here's an interesting headcanon. What if Dark Wolf is Necron's estranged father?
Huh.
I
There's
kind of like that
nothing in the
idea.
movie that supports
I
this.
kind of
There's
like that
nothing.
though. I
No,
kind of
that'd be
like it.
awesome. I'd be
That
about that.
actually, no, I'm okay with that. If whatever prequel nonsense they decide to do does that, I won't hate on it.
I told you to wash behind your
I mean,
ears. God damn it! Now I'm gonna have to kill you. Yeah, no.
Because that would kind of make sense. Because like he's got this, the Queen Juliana, which is not the most evil queen name that's ever
Yeah, I was
existed.
kind of like, I rewatching that. I was like, really, evil queen name is okay. You know what? Fine. This is
It's
somebody's
fine.
ex.
It's
Whatever.
fine.
Yeah.
Whatever.
and like most mothers, she just wants grandchildren. I mean,
Right.
Basically, yeah.
So
she just
what
wants
if
grandchildren.
she seduced some warrior, and
His
birthed
seed
her,
shall produce a strong and mighty.
and
This.
then cut, and what if
Hope that
there was a thing, and Necron betrayed his father or something, and then Dark Wolf decided to no, I will smash this evil seed that I am responsible for. I will take this from the world.
Yeah.
I brought you into this world, and I will take you the fuck out.
I like it. I'm on board with it. Let's do it.
So if that's the
Headcanon.
prequel series, I'm on. Like, I
Headcanon,
will read it
yes.
if that's the gist of the
If
prequel
that's
series.
the prequel series, I will check that out. Speaking of comic books, there is a Frazetta comic that
Is it
I've
like
seen.
Death Rider or some shit like that, or Death Adder?
Death
Something.
Dealer.
Yeah.
Death Healer,
Dealer.
something. I have not
Yeah.
Death
gotten
Dealer.
into it because I have a.
Because they did a novel. They did a novel of it, and then Glenn Danzig got involved in getting the Death Dealer comic.
Okay, good old Glenn. Good old Glenn Danzig. Good on you.
I got something to say.
If you
I
want to
wrote a
scream,
comic
scream with
today.
me.
Let's go where Eagles
die,
die.
die, my darling.
Dun dun dun. Mommy. Anyway.
That's
that's the Necron anthem. Mommy, may I go out and kill tonight?
Yeah,
And
pretty much.
yeah. God, where was I going with this? Okay, so I had an intuition that they were just using Frazetta's name, you know, and not like I don't get like what the connection is because he never wrote stories. He wasn't an author. He was just an artist.
He was involved in the original novel series of Death Dealer. Like he did the world building and I think and I could be wrong here, but presented like the drawings and notions of the character
Okay.
to a writer who then produced it or wrote it. Because it's Death Dealer who is prisoner of the horned helmet.
Okay.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Grants him his power, and I read the first couple of novels long ago, and it really appealed to me when I was like 13, 14 years old. So
okay, I will.
Its quality is. Keep in mind, 13 or 14-year-old, I still couldn't figure out the first Dune book. I'm like, nah, I don't get
Dune.
it. So I love it now, but at 13 or 14, I couldn't figure it the fuck out. Man.
I loved it then, man. It was right up my alley. Anyway,
I don't want to hear
we
about
don't-
you and sandworms being up your alley, pal.
We've got worm sign.
Oof.
So, do we have any other thoughts on this Fire and Ice, or are we about ready to maybe put a pin in this?
I do not have further thoughts on Fire and Ice.
I think we flogged this horse about as hard as it can be flogged without being called necrophiliacs. So.
Or Necron.
Or Necron.
Or necronphiliacs.
Necronphiliac. How have we got this long? We haven't made that joke yet.
Yeah, no, none of us are
well,
necronphiliacs.
I guess that's the name of this podcast title.
We are necronphobes, is what we are.
Yeah.
That's all thinking people should be.
How is Necron not a necromancer and just a nice dude? I feel that there's a really lost chance there.
Yeah, I feel like something was lost in translation.
It might be that he. We don't know the origin of those subhumans because the
Juliana, probably.
That's weird. That's a weird thought. You know, because in Tolkien the orcs are they're corrupted elves.
Yeah,
corrupted elves is what they are. So there may be an element to that because the subhumans in Fire and Ice are certainly humanoid, orcish.
Yeah.
They may be some corrupted soul in some way. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, so what happened to the elves in the Silmarillion is Melkor captured them and made them watch like a nonstop Meet the Feebles on fucking loop, and and they were sober.
Morgoth made Meet the Feebles. That's the connection. That's the Peter Jackson connection. It all makes sense.
It all makes sense now. Shit. All right.
Wake up, sheeple.
Well, I learned something this evening.
Was it useful? No. Will it help you in your life with a lesson? No.
That's not what we do here.
Will it get me to turn off my television permanently? Yes.
Yes.
All right. So this has been the Fire and Ice episode of Shallow and Pedantic. Check us out at Shallow and Pedantic. I'm sorry, Gumroad.com/Shallow and Pedantic. Patreon.com/Shallow and Pedantic. We'll be putting out a new issue of Unnamed Journal sometime next month. I'm Andrew.
I'm Mike.
I'm Kieran. Yeah, he's Mike. And I'm Kieran.
You said it right the first time.
Motherfuck it all, man.
Thank you guys for stopping by.